This is a bit of a different executive board meeting for me, or at least maybe a different feeling. For the past couple years, I've come to the executive board with a long list of resolutions, sometimes even dozens. Those resolutions were developed and proposed by the Structure, Services, and Finance Review Committee, or SAFER, along with ALPA's Finance Department leadership and staff. They were then approved by the Executive Council and brought to you for consideration. These resolutions consisted of items designed to streamline, update, or adjust ALPA's financial policies and procedures, or sometimes just simply putting practice into policy. It's been a lot of work by a lot of people, and I believe it's done a lot of good for our pilots. Hopefully, you're seeing the effects in your pilot groups as these improvements are implemented. One previously passed policy that I want to briefly touch on is consultant agreements with pilots on involuntary leaves. We have seen a number of these requests go up over the past year, which is good for ensuring continuity, which was the goal, but we also need to make sure that we are training our bench and not making these agreements augmented retirement plans, if you know what I mean. Back to the reason this executive board feels different to me, though, is that I come to you with only a few resolutions. Last year's board of directors meeting was a bit of a turning point, in my opinion. While there will probably be more adjustments, proposed changes, and improvements, a large part of the focus for SAFER going forward will be taking a hard and detailed look at dues allocations to our contingency funds, MECs, and LECs, as well as spending limit formula as a whole and a possible dues reduction. Before I get into that, I want to thank again the members of the SAFER Committee and the staff and the Finance Department for all their hard work in bringing forward all the resolutions you've seen so far here. And I want to thank each of you as well, especially those in delegate committees, for your consideration of these items. I truly believe that together we have made ALPA better for our pilots. Now back to those magic words that seem to perk up the ears of just about every ALPA member: dues reduction. I'm not going to make any promises today. Not how or when it will happen, not on the amount of reduction, and not even a promise that there will even be a reduction. But what I can promise you is that the SAFER Committee is going to be very detailed, do a thorough review and evaluation of the entirety of the dues structure, a holistic review that takes a look at all the moving pieces involved, everything a dues reduction would potentially affect. The last time ALPA did a dues reduction from 1.9% to 1.85%, it involved a handful of workarounds and carve-outs in its implementation. Obviously, this is not ideal. We want to review our dues structure in its entirety, so our next dues reduction not only doesn't require add-ons in fine print, but it also sets up the association to conduct potential changes in the future in a much cleaner manner. We also have the offer to return dues. In July, the Executive Council will determine the amount of this year's offer to return. All of us up here feel very strongly about being responsible stewards of our pilots' dues dollars, and that includes returning their dues when we have an abundance. And as approved at the BOD last year, we'll continue to have a process in place to trigger future offers. For today, though, we have a few resolutions for you to consider. You'll hear more about them in delegate committee, but they include a proposal to adjust the length of strike assessments, moving away from a pay-as-you-go model and recommending a strike benefit assessment that occurs over a longer period of time. This approach will reduce the size of the assessment in each paycheck to make it easier on the pilot. Another proposal falls under what I mentioned earlier about putting policy into practice. This resolution seeks to codify ALPA's practice of applying any member payment to dues and assessments first before funding other obligations like insurance payments, which will lapse anyway if a pilot were to go into bad standing. The final SAFER proposal is to ensure that MECs and LECs can advertise and seek donations for most of the non-dues funds held at MECs and LECs, such as flower funds and approved social funds. On that note, it's time to look at ALPA's finances. Before I begin, it's worth stating that I think we already recognize there is a lot of volatility in the economy this year and a lot of uncertainty in the industry. Some of you are seeing that within your pilot groups. We'll get more into this from our economic and financial analysis folks later this afternoon. At ALPA, We always strive to budget responsibly and conservatively, and we also realize the need to be flexible and adapt. That's why we're holding off on deciding the amount of the offer to return until July, to give us as much time as possible to determine our best course of action. Don't get me wrong, ALPA is still in a very strong financial position, as these slides will demonstrate. But we're keeping a close eye on the economic outlook for the industry, especially as we approach budget season. As you see here, death by PowerPoint, here we go. And then the tongue twisters of words as we go through the PowerPoint slides, my favorite part. As you see here, the association finished last year with a net surplus of $112.4 million. That's the second straight year with more than $100 million of net surplus. Just like with the previous year's surplus, this comes from conservative investments by our investment management committee, as well as the remnants of the post-COVID effect. Not only did our industry continue to grow, but ALPA contracts continue to improve, which of course adds to our dues income. Together, that helped provide us with our record surplus. This shows our year-to-date finances through March 31st. Our net surplus is $63.1 million, which I should mention is higher than our year-to-date position at the same point last year. Much of the surplus is due to profit sharing paid out on last year's profits, which came in the first quarter. The next few slides show us a comparison between actual dues and budgeted dues in 2024 and the year-to-date in 2025, and then actual expenses and budgeted expenses. The first slide shows a month-by-month view of our dues income, both budgeted and actual. The jump you see in our dues in the first quarter is again from profit sharing. As you see, we are once again bringing in more dues income than we had budgeted. This graph shows cumulative amount of our dues income as the year progresses, both budgeted and actual, last year and year-to-date this year. As I mentioned, ALPA budgets conservatively. You can see here that our budgeted dues this year is below our actual dues for 2024. So far this year, our actual dues are outpacing both budgeted dues and last year's actual totals. We'll review the same figures now with our budgeted and actual expenses. Expenses are a little more volatile than dues month to month, as the actions of the association aren't spread out evenly throughout the calendar. That bump you see in October, for example, is due to our board of directors meeting. We also typically see bumps due to large meetings such as the Leadership Training Conference, Legislative Summit, and the Air Safety Forum. With this slide, again, we look at the cumulative figures for our budgeted and actual expenses. Last year, we trended slightly above budget for our actual expenses, while this year, thus far, we are below budget. It's worth noting that we started last year off slightly below budget and ending up above budget at the end of the year. Here's where we can see everything come together. In order, you see budgeted dues, actual dues, budgeted expenses, and actual expenses for the 5-year period from 2020 through 2024, and then year-to-date in 2025. This is a great way to showcase the growth of our association. You can easily see here the growth of our budgeted dues in blue and the actual dues in orange. That increase has made it possible for us to offer more to our members. The upward trend you see here for expenses is due both to the growth in number of pilots and pilot groups over the past 5 years and the additional costs in serving them, as well as the increased resources ALPA has developed for our members. One of our most important resources is the Major Contingency Fund, or MCF. As an association, we've done a tremendous amount of work to grow this fund over the past decade. With that growth, we've been able to expand the use of the MCF, bringing even more benefits to our pilot groups. I'm extremely proud that we've been able to continue to grow the fund while expanding the uses of the fund at the same time, through instituting the contract implementation grants and as well as providing more access. You'll notice at the top of the chart these past 4 years, a second figure. That figure is our headquarters building fund, which was established in 2022, and it lives within the MCF. This chart focuses solely on our headquarters building fund, with the annual contributions noted. Our current balance in this fund is $16 million, with the expected balance to be $19.7 million by the end of this year. As Jason mentioned, ALPA has signed a letter of intent to purchase a new property here in Tyson's Corner that could serve as our new permanent headquarters. We are now engaged in negotiating a potential purchase agreement. We're not there yet, and there are a few obstacles in the road, but if this effort does not succeed, the Headquarters Building Committee will work to identify other opportunities. The good news is that we have time. The ALPA's headquarters leases remain in place for another 5 years. Finally, we have the Operating Contingency Fund, the OCF. The OCF is your backstop as an MEC. One of the many great benefits of belonging to ALPA. It's our version of overdraft protection. Essentially, should you as an MEC find yourself in a deficit fiscal position. For 2024, 7 MECs received initial operating fund allocations to support negotiations, and there were 9 MEC contingency fund allocations. In 2025, year to date, 8 MECs have received funds from the operating fund to support upcoming or ongoing negotiations, and only 2 MECs have access to contingency fund to support deficit account balance conditions experienced by their MEC. One final comment before I hand it back over to Jason. Let's show of hands how many executive board members are former secretary treasurers. Okay, so quite a few of you. Sean and I recently held the annual Secretary Treasurer's Conference, and I commented at the time that so many of our MEC chairs have had that position in their background. The reason, as those of you who raised your hand likely know, is that the position holds a wide range of responsibilities within ALPA, and you truly get a sense of the association as a whole. It's a great foundation to build on. While I've never become an MEC chair, I can attest to the foundation of knowledge from my time as the JetBlue Secretary Treasurer. Working with the rest of the officer team, I've used that foundation, the work we've been able to do in the past few years, all the items we referred to earlier in my remarks is based no small part on that foundation. The Secretary Treasurer's Conference continues to grow, and this year we had more than 60 MEC and LEC officers in attendance. It's proven to be a valuable event for both elected officials, but also for me. I'm able to get input and feedback on the changes we're thinking about and the changes we've implemented from the people who are most closely affected by them. I say it every year at the conference, these are my people. And if it is indeed true about Secretary Treasurers providing somewhat of a foundation for the future of MEC chairs, I think the future of ALPA will continue to be bright. Thank you very much for your time.